Hey, what's going on, Scatterbrains? Thank you for coming to another episode of Scatterbrains. My name is Travis, and I know I am late, very late. I have not made a video in like a week or so, but today I'm gonna try to play catch up. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock out Having to Hold episode 5. Then I need to go watch episode 6 so I can do that review, and then I'm gonna do the last Married at First Sight. Okay, so this is To Having to Hold's review for season 1, episode 5. So I'm not gonna go in the typical order that I normally do because this episode was mostly focused on Pashalana. So let's start with Devati. So in this episode, they're at their son Devin's 7th birthday party at Sky Zone, which is a trampoline park. And David tells us that he didn't initially like the idea of nesting, but he's starting to, I guess in a sense, come around to it because he now has time to himself, and he's able to like get up with his, friends and all of that kind of stuff. So while he didn't originally like it, I think it was last week's episode where he wasn't really feeling it too much, he's coming around to it. Things are going really well between them at the party, and it's reminding Ty of how things used to be between them and making her question about, as she said, they pulled the trigger too soon, and should they maybe have tried to work on it a little bit more. Later on in the episode, David gets to go out with some of the guys. He meets Clint, Yandrick, and Fly Tie. I don't know why they have Fly Tie on here as Fly Tie when that's not his real name. That's just his like stage name. But anyway, he meets up with them three at a axe throwing place, and I'm like, where is this place at? I'd like to know what that is. That seems like something I want to do. But lost my place. So they're at this axe throwing place, and he doesn't really want to be interrogated about all the nesting stuff, but given with this show, we only got 10 episodes to get through all of this. So they talk to him about the nesting thing, give all their views on it. And David says one of the biggest issues that he has is that he's not getting sex, and that he believes, make sure I quote it correctly this time, he believes that he should be getting it, or that I guess a couple should have sex at least 2 to 3 times per week. That's how much sex he thinks he should be getting, and he says he hasn't had sex in like months. So I guess that's one of his biggest issues when it came to the marriage. Both Fly Tie and Clint both expressed to him that there is life after divorce. Both of them are remarried. I did not know that Fly Tie was married before Jacinda, but I did know somebody who he was engaged to for a moment in time, but that's neither here nor there. But both of them have remarried and are experiencing a better life in their new marriages than their old. So just trying to let him know that if him and Tayad do decide to go their separate ways, he can always get remarried. It can always be better than it was before. And so that's pretty much all that happened with Dividing this episode. So then let's go up to Ursula. So during this episode, we learned that Ursula has an opportunity to expand her career, but it's out of town. So it would mean that she would have to stay out of town 4 times a week. And she needs to tell Clint this news. So in her effort to butter him up, well, she's a vegan, so tofu him up, I guess you can say. She takes him to this vegan place so she can tell him the news. She feels like he should understand because he travels all the time for whatever his job is, and hopefully he'll have some level of understanding when it comes to her wanting to continue her career. But he ain't trying to hear it. He ain't trying to hear the fact that she wants to expand her career. He feels like she's just not satisfied, and I don't really understand why he feels that way. I guess for some men, they want their wives to be home, and I don't know if it's almost like a sense of control to want your spouse to stay in their normal routine. And I don't understand why at this point, because they don't have children that are in the home, which is why they're called the empty nesters. So this would be the time, as Ursula said, to flourish and all of that kind of stuff. And I would think that Clinton would be supportive of that, but based on what we're seeing, he's not necessarily sold on the idea. They meet up later in the episode to talk about it some more and talk about why it's important to her, but he's just more so concerned about how it's going to affect the marriage. And one thing that she pointed out is she thinks that it's because he feels like that she won't need him anymore. And he gets emotional later in the episode because he just doesn't want to feel like he's going to be discarded because of whatever this new position is. So I guess we'll see where things go from here. But for me, I would just expect you to be supportive of your spouse. If they have an opportunity to advance their career, just be supportive of that. But, we'll see what happens with Ursula. All right, let's go up to the Dinks. So Dink number 2 meets with Juliana early on in the episode, and they talk about feeling like outsiders, I guess, within the group of friends. They also kind of debrief, talk about Spanksgiving and the argument that Elaine had with Juliana about I was about to say the throuple, but the throuple, y'all know what I'm talking about. They also talk about having children and the pressure to have children. Excuse me, and Christine talks about the pressure that she's still facing, obviously, from her side of the family and from his side of the family to have children. I mean, and like I always have said, when you get married, that's pretty much the next question after you get married is when you're gonna have children. Like, all people who probably don't get that question asked are people who are much older. But pretty much anybody young, as soon as you get married, they're gonna start asking when you're gonna start having kids if you don't have any already. But throughout this episode, she is concerned that she might be pregnant because later in the episode, she's talked about she was spotting, but then at one point she said something about a crime scene. And I thought spotting was literally spots and not like gushing. So I wasn't really clear about which one it was. But Dink number 1 and Dink number 2, they go to get a massage. And then that's when they talk more about having children. And she asked him how the meeting with a visit with his dad that happened, I think 2 weeks ago on the show went. And pretty much all that we saw his dad talk about was him wanting grandchildren. Dink number 1 is ready for children. Obviously, Dink number 2 is not. She's more so concerned about how the children or having a child is going to affect her physically. She talked about the changes that your body goes through, breastfeeding. She talked about the fact of a baby coming out of her vagina and how that's going to affect that. So, okay. I could go down the road, but I'm not going to go down there today. So they go out to dinner later, and she tells him that she thinks she's pregnant because she's been sweating. She didn't say hot flashes, but she's just been sweating, and he's even said that he's noticed a change in her as well. And I don't think that she took a test during this episode. I think that's in next week's episode. Yeah, it's in next week's episode when she actually takes the test. And from my just guess, she's not pregnant just because in any interview we've seen her in, she's not pregnant. Now, she's not pregnant currently today. Now, it doesn't mean that she doesn't get pregnant and, all that could possibly happen, but I don't think that she's actually pregnant. But she's just not ready to have a child. She still wants to travel, even though they apparently do that. She still wants to work out, and she's just not ready for the physical changes that comes along with pregnancy. So that's that. Moving down to Pashalana. Like I said, most of this was pretty much about them because the episode started off with Pashalana going to Fly Tie and Jacinda's podcast. I know they had a podcast. I knew they had a radio show, but apparently they have a podcast. So they go to the podcast, and I think the conversation was initially supposed to be about unconventional relationships in a sense, but Juliana took this moment to kind of just vent her frustrations with, I think Fly Tie asked a question about people's opinions of their situation, and Juliana took that opportunity to talk about Elaine at the Spanksgiving party and the things that she had to say about their marriage. Not their marriage, their situation. So she pretty much vents how she feels about Elaine without saying her name on the podcast. So they talk about the relationship dynamic and all of that. And for Juliana, she says in the episode that she does not use the word stepfather. She refers to Peter as their father because according to him, he's been in their lives since they were 1 and 2. Timeline wise, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because, I know how it happens, but it just doesn't make sense to me that your current partner has been in y'all's lives since your youngest child was 1, which means they must have been on the outs during that second pregnancy. That's my guess because I can't imagine that a happy couple in love who's having a child, which is usually like one of the happiest times in your relationship, would break down within a year. That timeline just doesn't make a lot of sense to me regarding that. But she doesn't use the word stepfather. She refers to Peter as their father because he's been in their lives for so long. So she does refer to Elaine as a bulldozer. I put that in the notes. But like I said, she doesn't say her name, but she calls her a bulldozer. And did she say that? Yeah, she said that in the interview, that she's a bulldozer and she's ready to run over anybody. So she was really upset during her interview with Fly Tie and Jacinda, and she pretty much just spilled it all out. Josh kind of chimed in during the conversation, but Peter really didn't say much because Peter is the one that's closest to Elaine. I guess they consider themselves really good friends, but he didn't really say anything. He didn't take up for Elaine, but I think he also kind of didn't agree with Josh and Juliana. So they're gonna meet up with Elaine later on in the episode. So let me skip up to Alondric and then we'll come back to Pashalana. So at Elaine's, I don't know if it's her salon or the salon that she works at, Yandrick brings her flowers and wine because he sees that she's been working so much. You know, they've had some financial issues. They really haven't gone into detail about what those financial issues are outside of the fact that I think he had a restaurant that closed and her salon closed. So they're both just working to get back on their feet, to get back in a better place financially so they don't have to work as many hours. And so Elaine can be back at home with the children. So he brings her flowers and wine. He does her hair, jacks it up. But, you know, it's, you know, fun TV or whatever. They do talk about the podcast and that she's disappointed in Peter not stepping up and, you know, not taking up for her, rather, I should say. So pretty much they're just looking forward to next year after they laid the foundation for a new financial situation. So she calls Peter and she tells him that she wants to talk to all of them. So then we're going to go back to Pashalana because that's pretty much, I think, how the episode ended. So they all meet with Elaine at Inks and Ivy, which is a restaurant here. Excuse me, who hopefully this means I'm getting some money. So Elaine feels like that they're all good enough friends that if there was an issue, they could have reached out to her and not went on the podcast to do all of that, which, you know, I mean, I understand, but for the sake of TV, you know, that's what happened. But it was a whole lot of back and forth because Elaine's view of the relationship is not the same as the three of their view of the relationship. To me, as unconventional as it may be, as odd as it may be, Pashalana, they have their somewhat of an understanding about how this relationship works. Now, for somebody like me, I'm more on the same side as Elaine. I could never do that. I could never have children with someone and have that person in my life as much as Juliana as is in theirs. I couldn't do it. That's just, I believe that exes are an ex for a reason. Now, co-parenting is one thing, but they seem to have passed the boundary of co-parenting. They're doing that whole kind of like Will and Jada thing with Will's like first wife or baby mom or whatever. They're doing that kind of thing. And you know, it works for some people, but for me, I'm just not gonna have you in my space like that because you're my ex. And that's my past. So, whereas Elaine does not look at Peter as their father, they look at Peter as their father. And it really just is a situation where Elaine is just gonna have to respect that. That is the way that they see it. That is the way they define their relationships. Granted, it's not the textbook definition of what a father is, but that is what they do it. You know, it's 2019 and people define things however they want to at this point. Words that meant one thing 10 years ago, they don't mean the same thing today. And people create new words for different stuff. So at this point, you know, it's hard to keep up with what words mean. You know, words mean things. Shout out to Crystal, but what can you do? When people define things the way that they want to, you know, all you can do is just respect it and just roll with it. But they're trying to they being Josh and Juliana, are trying to get Peter to take a stand on where he is and everything. Like, are you on our side or are you on her side? I think Josh said he needs to pick friends or family as far as where he stands and everything. And I think Peter finally does say to Elaine that those are his kids. And he just expresses his feelings to Elaine and hopes that she will respect it. So that's really all that happened in this episode. It wasn't a lot. That was the most drama that happened in the episode, but it wasn't much more than that. Y'all let me know what y'all thought of episode 5, season 1, To Have and Told. Make sure you rate, comment, subscribe, share if you feel like it. I'll be coming back with the next episode's review. I guess either later today or tomorrow. I've been working on this book. My book is it's fully illustrated. I finished my last illustration like 2 days ago. And so that's pretty much all I was doing last week, was finishing up my illustrations. My on sale date, my pre-order date is July 30th, and my book will be available August 6th. So that is where all my attention and energy has been towards, not these reviews, but it's done. I'm back, I think. So I'll be seeing y'all really, really soon. Peace.